Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ground Control to Major Nerds. Today we'll be talking about aviation incidents in general and also talking about the impact of aviation safety, but extending it a little bit more from our previous episodes. Firstly, I would like to apologize for not being consistent with our episode releases. We had some ongoing,
Scheduling issues.
yeah, personal life issues. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we came back with an episode with a proper context and a proper perspective of how we talk about it. And I think it's better late than never to do it properly. So I think that was the intention. So um, we we did enough uh, research on the topics that we're going to talk about today to provide you guys with a proper context. So here we are. So yeah. So I'm joined by my constant co-hosts, Parvesh and Ashwini. Ashwini, how are you doing?
Good. It's good to be back. Good to record another episode after what seems like ages. Hi,
You
and good to see all of you guys again.
you finally recovered from your
Yes, I had a viral fever and now I'm back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Good that you have recovered quickly. So that's great. All right, Parvesh, how you doing, man?
good. I am currently jobless. Have yet to start my new job.
Okay,
So looking forward to that.
cool. And you're going to be moving to Bangalore soon?
Yeah, for temporarily at least.
Okay, that's great. Good to know. Okay, so yeah, so today's episode we're going to talk about in general what aviation incidents have happened so far this year. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I think this year has been a bit more eventful eventful in the wrong way, not in the right way. Eventful in terms of
Yeah.
the incidents that have taken place. I feel like
There
it's not.
seems to be just this drastic up curve in incidents being recorded, and it just feels like for all of the wrong reasons, aviation has been in the news every week.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
coming and being so close to aviation myself, it's very surprising because actually it's not like just like very surprising, but it's at the same time it's significantly surprising, I must say, because of the amount of work that gets done in the background to make these systems safe, and still seeing incidences like near misses on a regular basis, wake issues like turbulence issues on a regular basis, and the incidents that led to fatalities this year. It's just kind of significant and it needs to be talked about. It feels like just to give you guys some numbers, I think last year in total in 2024 there were 404 fatalities and um 120 incidents, out of which 15 of them were significant, and that was the entirety of 2024. This year, we had a total of 90 incidents already, out of which 14 were significant. We are already in August and we have 472 fatalities. So that is kind of, I mean, it's not drastically up, but it is significantly up. And, I guess year by year, we should be improving on the aviation safety factors and reducing the number of incidents, but it seems like there is an uptick in it. So that is something I thought we would like to talk about in today's episode.
The average volume of flights people take every on a
Mhm.
daily basis. Maybe that's one of the causes.
Um, to be honest with you, y- that could be the reason, but it has organically grown. It has not grown just within a year, right? So
That's
it has
true, yeah.
organically grown in like the last 10 years or 15 years, from the time like electrification, fly by wire, and all these other things which have made maintenance of aircrafts easier. I think, um, like the efficiency of aviation and the uptick in the amount of flights that are happening on a daily basis, it has organically improved. It did not drastically improve
Mhm,
without
mhm.
having the infrastructure, in my opinion, at least from what I know and what I have worked in the last 10 years, like a decade of aviation experience. I don't think so it is something because of the number of flights have increased the incident? I mean, it could be. I'm not saying it's not, because the probability of failure will go up because of the number of flights that have increased. But I that is very like it has organically gone up with the infrastructure as well. So I think there is a huge scope to avoid these incidents, in my opinion. That's not something which is like an acceptable, thing. That's what I would bring to that, topic, at least, Pavesh. So not to disagree with you. Yes, there's a lot
No,
of,
no, it's
you know,
just
there's a lot of
spitballing.
increase in flights, but like I think the infrastructure and the amount of work that happens in the background to keep it safe, to keep this industry safe and this transport mode of transportation safe, there is something lacking, and there has to be more work done on it. So yeah.
Ashwini,
I
you were
think
saying?
one reason is weather for sure, and how
Hmm.
weather is, it just seems to become progressively worse year by year.
Hmm.
And the only point that I wanted to adhere to for incidents that have happened this year, we've already recorded 90, like you mentioned, but
Hmm.
we are still undergoing the severe monsoon in the Indian subcontinent, the
Hmm.
entire
Oh,
South
yeah.
China Sea, where there is regular stormy and choppy weather. That is something that is still undergoing. And we are still seeing the hurricane season that affects the entire Atlantic, transatlantic flight routes. So, weather is something that does play a big reason as to why there is so much of incidents happening in the air. And for this year, we are still to go through that entire rough season of flying. So it could be something that is potentially a very scary number that we could be seeing, unless and until we ensure that we have some sort of safety, even with this progressively worse weather.
Yeah, and also I have to bring in the business side of things for aviation. There's always been a number game in at least the commercial side of aviation, right? Like how much each quarter each airline operator needs to, show profitability to his stakeholders, slash like how many
Mm.
more flights can they fly in a day, how many legs extra can they make the pilot fly. Like these things are kind of critical. Like I understand the weather patterns, like I'm not a naysayer to like climate change or anything like that, but I do get it. Like those things are an important factor, but at the same time, the systems that we are developing to keep us informed about it and keep us safe from those adverse weather conditions, they are there. They are in place. I feel like it's more about the business decision making side, where they just want to do that extra flight on a daily basis or an extra leg in like the routine, like where the threshold would be like maybe X, they're doing X plus 2 just to show the profitability. I think those
Mhm.
critical decision making is happening in like closed doors, which has nothing to do with regulations or any kind of bylaws, but it's more of a business decision that is also taking place. I think that's also a factor that's actually influencing, in my opinion, these incidents uptick as well. So that's my point of view from just the fact of like coming from a systems development perspective or a certification perspective. The laws are very clear, the regulations are pretty clear, but the deviations are also pretty clear. There are clear deviations that are getting taken like from the regulations itself, and those deviations are getting accepted too because there is business decision making involved in it. So we're going to talk more about that in like one of the incidents that we're going to break down, which was the darkest day in our aviation history. But before we go into that topic, is there any more things that you guys want to bring to light on this, like on this year's incidents that have happened?
Not particularly, but I was thinking another thing. I don't have the data in front of me, but I was thinking like many aircrafts are like 15, 20, 25 years old. So I wonder how many are like coming into end of life currently.
Hmm.
At the same time, like many of the softwares they use across the entire value stream. I'm not saying just in the aircraft or something, how old those are, whether
Hmm.
they're due for an upgrade, you know,
So
maybe
so
to check vulnerabilities and things like that.
no, that's an absolutely important concern to talk about, right? Like
Mhm.
to like generally like give you an idea, right? Especially from my background of what I did in my work at Collins, or when we were doing like the core engineering at Gulfstream, which is basically upkeeping older aircrafts or older models or older generations, or like the customers which are using those older generation aircrafts. There's always an obsolete process that happens, and these are also heavily regulated, right? Like if an aircraft is going to a like a maybe the primary owner has sold it to another, like, entity, and that has again been resold, and there's a lot of resale market that is there in aviation. At
Yep.
the same time, there's a lot of retrofit market that's there in aviation, right? But all of
Mhm.
that is heavily regulated to the point where you have to maintain certain standards to fly regardless of how old the aircraft is. Now, how well that operator or that personnel who are operating that older aircraft, and like in terms of keeping the records straight, in terms of keeping the paperwork straight, and in terms of the regulatory authorities keeping track of these changes and these retrofits happening, that is something is questionable. But the practices, the laws, the regulations are in place, the infrastructure is in place
Yeah.
to make sure that even if the aircraft is coming to its end of life, it does operate still according to the norms and the regulations that exist currently. The current in summary, what I want to say is that the current existing regulations and the regulatory bodies are set up correctly to make sure that these incidents could be completely avoidable even if the aircraft is coming to the end of life. But how much is it getting adhered to, and how much visibility do the airworthiness agencies have? That is something which is questionable. Again, it is a business thing, right? Like, it's nothing to do with the regulations. It is something to do with how much does the operator, like, show in terms of compliance. So that is what is my understanding. Again, I might be wrong. I might be, like, maybe very specific to my area of expertise, and that's what I'm trying to say. I completely don't know about India. I know about US market, and that's why I'm bringing that up. So
Just to paraphrase, you're
Mhm.
saying the process is there, but are they following it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So there is the proper infrastructure there to adhere to safety and also maintain safety. But is everybody following it? And how much visibility does the regulatory authorities have to make sure that they are following it is something which is a question, and that needs to be answered. And especially with whatever changes that are happening to all the regulatory bodies in the world, like because of money, like, because of finances, or because of shortage of talent in general. There is a shortage of talent in terms of like aviation safety. Like everybody who is in aviation safety, they are learning on the job. That's another thing that's coming up. Like the people who used to write these regulations and policies are getting out of the industry more. The new talent that's coming in is actually having to actively learn on the job. Like I had to learn on the job too, a lot of things, a lot of these regulations. And the academics only helps you with the the aircraft and the aerospace side of things, but the regulation side you got to learn by yourself while you're working. And before, there used to be a lot of mentors. I had mentors, luckily, in my first 5 years, in my foundational years of my career. But I see new engineers that are coming out. It's very difficult for them to learn too. So there's a lot. There's a shortage of talent as well. There's a shortage of understanding of these regulations as well. And businesses are not doing a lot of these trainings for their employees either. Like they just want the paperwork to be passed, and it is not something which is like absurd to say this. It is actually happening actively, where they want to do the minimum whenever they say MOPS, which is basically minimum operational procedures. They would be more than happy to do the minimum to get by because that's what the regulation says. But like that is the current scenario, and I think that's where also that contributes heavily to uh, the incidents happening. In my opinion. So yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
should talk about the most recent incident and the most infamous incident that has happened,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
the Air India incident that happened in Ahmedabad. Uh, a preliminary report has already been established. I believe
Yeah.
everyone has already seen the report. there was massive amounts of media hysteria and all sorts of opinions that had been out in the
Mhm.
market and all over social media. Thankfully, all of that has died down. So let us
Mhm.
start taking a more educated look into what the report is. Shrikant, you've
Yeah.
gone through the report. What is your understanding of it?
So
Sort of like
I'm
a
just
case
gonna,
study.
yeah, I'm not gonna paraphrase or summarize the report. I'm just gonna straight away look into the report and give the key pointers factually. So if you look at the section 10 of the report, right, it is basically narrating the incident uh, and the timestamp of incidents that have taken place to until the Mayday call. So 7:43 UTC, the aircraft requested pushback and startup. 7:43 13 seconds, ATC approved pushback. 7:46 59 seconds, ATC approved startup.
1 second.
7
So ATC is air traffic control, right? For those who
Yeah,
are listening.
yeah, we will break down the whole thing, but I just wanted to narrate exactly how the report says it. 7:49 12 seconds, ATC has requested the aircraft to require full length of the aircraft. The aircraft confirmed requirement of full length of the runway 23. Uh, 7:55:15, the aircraft requested taxi clearance, which was granted by ATC. 8:02:03, the aircraft was transferred from ground to tower control. 8:03:45, the aircraft was instructed to line up on the runway 23. 8:07:33, the aircraft was cleared for takeoff from runway 23, wind 260 knots. Um, 8:09:05, Mayday
240.
call was made by AI 171. So from the time it lined up on the runway to the time the Mayday call was made was approximately 6 minutes, and the time it was like cleared for takeoff to the time the Mayday call happened was approximately 2 minutes, and the total flight time was 36 seconds. And the altitude, I have heard this in media. They are predicting an altitude number. The report does not talk about how much altitude the aircraft gained. So that is something critical that needs to be noted. Uh, the report also tells us what all they have done uh, to to understand and produce this initial report. So they have recovered the flight data recorder, which is the EAFR, which is the Dreamliner's modern the flight data recorder. Um, they were not able to decode it or translate the data on the EAFR, since it required some specific equipment from Boeing slash American agencies like NTSB. So there was a delay in that. They Once they got the data, they started to uh, you know uh, translate it, and they they then produced the initial report that we are seeing in front of us. The key factors of that data was the 36-second airborne and normal operations of V1, Vmax, and VR, meaning that the pilots followed normal operations. No abnormalities in takeoff procedures were noted. All airspeeds, it was 180 knots max speed that the aircraft achieved on the runway before liftoff, before VR, which we call rotate, which basically the pilots pull up to get the aircraft airborne. Um, all of them were nominal numbers. All of them were normal operations. No abnormality in pilot operations were recorded according to the report. The abnormality that the report points out towards is the fuel control switch going from engage to disengage or on to off, depending upon what aircraft that you're on. The terminology is changed, but for Boeing it is engage to disengage. Um, they also point out in the report that the pilots had a communication between each other due to that the disengagement of the fuel control switch, where there is a short transcript where the pilot pilot number one, they call it pilot number one and pilot number two due to for the sake of privacy. uh the pilot number one is asking pilot number two, did you do that? And pilot number 2 says, no, he did not. So that's the only amount of data we have from the CVR transcript. And they also in the report show us the damage that has happened to the cockpit, to the equipment, to the fuel control switch, to the flap handle lever, and the on-ground damage that has taken place with the amount, the number of passengers that have been on board, and how many survived. Only one passenger survived. The rest on board have passed away, unfortunately. And on the ground as well, there were casualties and fatalities. In total, this incident had 270 casualties, is what the report has, published. So here's my summary of this whole report. Obviously, it's a 14-page report. Um, there are more details in it, but the significant details is what I have highlighted. Uh, and I think there are, um, like, there there's a huge amount of investigation currently happening. They've also given us the stakeholders of the investigation who are actually actively participating in this investigation. So I would like to read that out. It was in the initial introduction itself. So the NTSB, which is the American National Transport Safety Board, the FAA obviously is involved with the Boeing 787 engineering and safety team involved in it. Since there were passengers from Portugal, Canada, and Great Britain, their airworthiness representatives are involved in this investigation. Obviously, India, DGCA, no, sorry, not DGCA, but AAIB, which is the investigatory board of the Civil Aviation Authority in India, um, is involved. And they also got aviation psychologists involved in this investigation. And they want to make sure that they cover all bases in terms of if or any kind of understanding is required for the aviation psychology side, basically the pilot operational side. So those are
Hmm.
the stakeholders, and that is that is what is stated in the report. Yeah.
So there are people from the DGCA as well.
Yes, the DGCS Air Safety Directorate is involved, but that is again AAIB. So that is
Oh,
the
okay,
air
I see.
safety wing of DGCA, but DGCA directly is not involved. Again, Ashwini can correct me.
So the way this is essentially the Ministry of Civil Aviation, which is the parent body,
Hmm.
which is the ministry responsible for all of civil aviation in India.
Hmm.
That is this primary stakeholder. DGCA is a directorate, right? So their job is purely to understand what the issues were, and then their job is to activate the safety protocols into current operations. They will not be the ones investigating. They have absolutely no stakeholdership in any of the investigation, but they will be the guys who will ensure that whatever result comes out of the investigation, that the rules and regulations, the safety protocols are then followed by air regulators. The only reason they are involved in this is to understand that all of the safety protocols are followed by the operator, which is Air India. So they have to ensure that all of their safety procedures, all of their maintenance schedules, all of that is in place. They are simply going to report that to the Ministry of Civil Aviation.
Got it. One more thing before we deep dive into those discussions. There are a few things to also note in this report. One of them is that this report was actually published because there's a clause in ICAO Annex 13 that as soon as an incident like this happens, or a major catastrophe like this happens, or any incident which involved an accident or damage to the aircraft occurs, in the interest of public, you have to release an initial report within 30 days of the incident. And hence this report came in on the 29th day, I believe, or the 30th day, I believe. So that's one thing to put in. Like, that's, again, it's factual. That's what happened, and that's when the report actually also suggests that, as per IQ NX 13, it was this report was released and initiated, and also those stakeholders were involved. The other thing this report also mentions is that the fuel control switches had and SAIB, which is basically service. It is a kind of a service bulletin, but it is of a lesser, lesser importance. I might say it's basically an advisory and a recommended practice. It's not a directive, or it's not something which is a necessary change to the fuel control switches. So there is an SAIB that was released by Boeing and FAA. Boeing advised FAA to release an SAIB back in 2018, that there is an issue with the fuel control switches wherein the fuel control switches do disengage due to certain installation criteria and due to certain flight conditions. Now, it's not in that much of detail, but at the same time, EASA captured that document in within their regulations, as well as it was supposed to be also communicated to other directives in the world. So reading
So,
that SAIB, it gives us an idea that this fuel control switch was already in question from 2018, but at the same time, Boeing and FAA deemed it to be an advisory and not a necessary, practice to check it and to reinstall it or retrofit it if required. So that is
so it's like
something
an
that the report also
FYI.
mentions.
It's
Yeah,
like a
it's
for
basically
your
like
info.
it's like an FYI that, hey, this is just a recommended practice. If you want to adhere to it, you should, but it is not a shall. So in aviation terms, a shall is you must and you have to. There is no other way to look at it. But if you use words like you may or may not or you should, it is something totally by the operators. They can either adhere to it or not. It's up to them. It's up to their business case. So this was again noted in the report, SAIB. Let me just give you the specific number of the SAIB. SAIB NM 18-33. This was released on December 17th, 2018. And this is a special airworthiness information bulletin. So this is not a service bulletin. So that means it is not something that it has to be adhered to 100% of the time. It is just an advisory, and if the operators decide to, they will adhere to it. If not, they can continue operations as usual. So, uh, and this was basic. There's another pointer that the report says this SAIB was for 737 model, not for 787, but it did mention that other models of Boeing that use similar slash same fuel control switches, installation methods, or the general flight deck in itself may be also impacted by the service bulletin. So they did mention the other models like 717-200, 747-400, 400D-400F, 757, 767, 787. So they did mention all of them, and also MD-11s, MD-11Fs, and MD-90. I don't know why MD still fly, but okay. So those were also involved in them in that list. But and these are all Honeywell flight control switches, so they have Honeywell part numbers associated to those two. So the SAIB does mention that, and this was also part of the initial report where they mentioned that this SAIB was published in 2018 and was notified to all operators for the flight control switch. So, sorry, fuel control switch. I keep saying flight control switch. My bad. Fuel control switch. So yeah, that's the report. That's the data in it. That's the only thing we can summarize through it. And yeah, I think uh, it is enough for an initial report. But I have my own thoughts. But I'll start off with you guys first. So, Ashini, you want to start off on?
Uh, I also went through the report. Just wanted to add a few more sort of key details that I understood from reading the report.
Mhm.
Of course, like you mentioned, the aircraft took off approximately 1:40 p.m. local time.
Mhm.
Uh, it does say that the normal V speeds were achieved, which means that all standard protocols were followed by the pilots. And immediately after liftoff, the thing that I noticed was it says both the fuel cutoff switches were disengaged within 1 second of each other.
Mhm.
That is a very key detail, that it happened within 1 second of each other. Both engines immediately lost thrust. Because of this loss of thrust, the ram air turbine was deployed, and the auxiliary power unit was also auto started. And attempts were made critically by the pilots to restart the engines. and mayday calls were made as well. The aircraft ended up crashing less than 1 nautical mile from its takeoff location, and it impacted a medical college, which is why there were so many casualties on ground as well. The notable findings that I saw, obviously, you talked about the fuel cutoff switches. It does mention that they were not pilot commanded, as because there was that confusion, like you said, about the CVR recordings, that there was some confusion between the two pilots as to whether someone had done the cutoff, and the other pilot saying that there was no cutoff initiated by the pilot. Uh, what I noticed was that they did mention that the engine relight was partially successful. Had there been a slightly higher altitude, the relight would have been completely successful. But it was unfortunate that one of the engines, the deceleration of the RPM was not arrested, and that is why the relight was only partially successful, which is why the aircraft crashed. And weather was good. The visibility, the weather, there was no issues there. Aircraft was well within all of its takeoff weight limits. So all of the conditions are absolutely right. There was no external influence due to which this incident happened. Also, very important, very critical, that there was no bird activity and there was no foreign objects found in there were no foreign objects ingested by any of the engines. So that was not one of the reasons why the engine thrust died out. So these were what my takeaways were from the report. Parvesh, do you have anything else to add?
Okay, you guys have both given like a really good summary, right? I just want to talk about the report itself. First off, there is a service, a special airworthiness information bulletin, right? And it was back in 2018. And they have a D check due this year. This year in December, they had a D check due this year. That means they had a C check in between sometime. They had ample time to change it, like change the switches, right? That said, like,
Come on.
they've like, there's no reason to put in the cockpit voice recording. One of the pilots said stuff. Like, put the whole recording then, right? I don't know. This feels like such a bad.
There are two different topics that you're trying to talk about, Parvesh. So let's talk about the first thing, which is the SAIB not being adhered to, and the C checks versus the D checks. Like by the time the C checks were done, they should have been caught, and the D check is due soon. Again, as I mentioned, it's not a service bulletin. Like if I
It's
was the
not,
operator,
but come on. Like, if you hear,
no, but
maybe the fuel switch might fail. Like,
I don't want to defend the
dude,
operators over here because I'm usually on the other side. But if I'm
it's
an
not
operator,
difficult.
no, but if I'm an operator, why would I increase my operational costs by replacing all the fuel control switches on my
You don't need to
787s?
do all at the same time. Come on.
Yeah, but still, it is something where I think most, like, what do you call it? If I'm doing an operational change, I won't do it to limited aircrafts. That's not how it works. It works to either
No,
all
but you can
aircrafts.
do it as your aircrafts are going through their checks, right?
Again,
You
to
can do it.
begin the conversation, like, how, okay, in an ideal world where there is no financial implications to my operations, right? That's the right thing to do. Absolutely needs to be done, right? 100%. But if you are running a business and your operational costs are going to go up because of an advisory, you will not do it.
It's
I think
it's not going
my
to go up
problem.
that much.
How do you know that?
It's just a switch.
No, it's not. It's a DAL-A switch. Fuel control switches are expensive. They are part of, and also you cannot just change a switch. You need to change the whole assembly of that, part of the flight deck. So I have played around with fuel control switches on Gulfstream like millions of times because of our testing procedures and everything. It's one of the main things you use to turn off or on the aircraft, right? And this, we have damaged switches. We have made sure that they have like been gone through crap tons of like on-off cycles. Like, they have gone through rigorous testings, and they do get damaged. And each time they get damaged, it's not cheap. It is kind of expensive. It's a DALI. It's a critical system, and they come with their costs. So I get it. I mean, overall, it's not as expensive as people losing their lives, 100%. But I
Yeah.
think the fault lies on the publication of the SAIB, in my opinion. So again, going back to the topic, right? SAIB versus SB.
I mean,
SB would
obviously, it's not one person's fault or one entity's fault. It's like a lot of people together. But
agreed, but I'm just
it
talking
feels
about
like
no. But
it's so.
my point, no, but my point is that I don't think so. Uh, the operators could be held liable in this case, or even like a
I
question.
doubt anyone can be held liable here.
No, okay, yeah, that's true. I mean, again, the whole investigation needs to be conducted and completed before we can lie. But again, the doubts of like, well, they should have adhered to at the C checks is something which I'm trying to like, debate with. Like, is that like
No, I'm not saying they
as an
should have. I'm just saying, like, come on, you had time. You could have done it.
no, you could have done it, but why would you do it? It's an advisory, right? That's what I'm trying to come from. Like, if
Yeah,
it's an
yeah, I
advisory,
agree.
why would I do it?
I
And
agree, but
that's
like,
my point. And again, I'm being a devil's advocate over here. If I'm pretty sure if somebody says fuel control switches and requires an
exactly,
advisory changes, you would do it. Exactly. But at the same
exactly.
time, going back to the initial part of the episode when I was trying to say business decisions, right? Here's where one of the examples is like, if it's an advisory and it's gonna cost like, I don't know, I'm just throwing a random number because of the similar system, which is the air data probes that I used to work on. Each air data probe was $300,000 on Gulfstream, right? So comparing that same criticality system, I think fuel control switches should be around 100K or approximately around that. Changing those set of fuel control switches, which is approximately 100K, like on each aircraft, that increases your operational costs significantly. And
No, but
if
see,
it's an
you're saying
advisory, why would you
all
do
at
it?
the same time, right? But I'm not saying that. Like, not every aircraft has its C check at the same time, right? Like, there might be one today and then one like 2 months from now, 3 months from now. There's
Again,
time. You
Parvesh,
can do it slowly.
I get it. On a single point no topic of flight control switches, maybe, sorry, fuel control switches, yeah, maybe, but there are thousand other parts, right? So
Huh, I'm not saying about the other parts, but this is a fuel control part.
all I'm talking about is the X number at the end of your operational cost
I
increasing, right?
agree. I
So
agree.
that's the thing.
I
So
see it.
yeah,
I understand what
it's
you're saying,
it's
especially
impossible.
from
It's impossible to get the value stream guys to spend that money when it's especially when it's advisory. It's always an ongoing battle between engineering and finance or
I
value stream or
completely
programs.
agree from
Yeah,
finances, but that frustration is there.
it is there, absolutely. And but I'm just being a devil's advocate over here because I've seen that happen on my regular. It still happens on a daily basis
I
over
see
here.
it happen too.
Yeah. We when we see an advisory, we do not act on it unless and until it's completely like obsolete. At that point, we are like, okay, yeah, let's implement this advisory as well, since we are doing an obsolescence on this, right? Until
Mm.
unless there's an obsolescence coming on that part, I'm not looking at the advisory at
You're
all,
not, yeah,
because
I
that's
agree.
how the industry is built to do operations. So that's when I think the regulations need to come in and make sure that if they are saying something as an advisory, they need to vet it out. Is it really an advisory, or is it a directive, or should it be a directive? So that is something in question, and that's why I mean, I get your point. Absolutely, that would be the number one thing I would do if I would have known about such an advisory, like, and if I was the in charge of the fleet operations. But if I have to make my bosses happy with the end of the quarter results, I would not be doing that, right? So
I mean, quite honestly, how many people do you think would have seen the advisory at all?
it wasn't spoken about until this incident. So
Exactly.
that tells you. And also, drastically, after this incident has occurred, a lot of operators have gone and checked their fuel control switches and adhered to this advisory. That tells, I mean, this SAIB, and that tells you. So
It
they
took 200 people's lives.
I get it, but I'm just saying like that's what took it. That's what it became. That's when it became active. Let's just say that. So
Mm.
I think this should have been a service bulletin, or even better, it should have been a directive if it is something which was erroneously cutting off the fuel while in flight operations, right? So I think
If I
that
can
is my
just
concern.
give my two bits on this, this entire discussion that we've just had, it's a very hard what if. And
Yeah.
the
So
correct
it's
answer for
just
this is
opinion.
something that we will never know. But uh, this is something that what my takeaway from this entire incident is that in a safety first culture, advisories do not sit on shelves, and even if it's
Mhm.
something as small as an advisory, it sparks action, it raises questions, and they're not just discussions in boardrooms and in hangars, they are safety action items, even if it's an advisory, because ultimately what you're saying, Shrikant, is completely true. It comes down to a number. But very often in private entities, uh, numbers are taken into consideration rather than the safety cost. And the safety cost is not something that is being paid for by the company, it is being paid for by the passengers. Passengers are paying the entire full price for a flight ticket. Aviation is not cheap. If you're also having to pay with your life, then that is a price that they've asked too much for. And who are you leaving
Mhm.
behind? You're leaving behind grieving families. Uh, in when a tragedy like AI 171 happens, it is a very hard question that has to be asked. Is the system enough, or has the system done enough to prevent such a situation? And we must understand that India's civil aviation sector has grown immensely in the last 2 decades. There are more passengers, there are more aircrafts, there are more international routes, there are more private players. With that growth, there has to be an equal growth in responsibility and an equal growth in safety culture. To match the operational expansion, you have to have regulatory vision and vigilance. So you have to be honest about identifying the fact that there is a safety culture gap when it comes to Indian aviation.
Yeah.
And it is not about blaming individuals. We are not going to sit here and say that this particular group of people have messed up, which is why there has been a loss of life. Because most of the people, whether it's airline staff, whether it's engineers, ATC operators, whether it's DGCA personnel, they are all doing difficult jobs, and we all know that those jobs are difficult. And it's often at many times at very limited resources. But as a system,
Mhm.
we all have to stand up and understand that safety is not a checklist, it is a mindset that has to change. It is not about blaming someone, it is about standing up and taking responsibility so that there is safety vigilance. So, yeah, we are discussing a what if, and we will truly never know what the answer is. What could have happened? But we should take up a stronger stance on safety, a stronger stance on vigilance when it comes to safety. And we should also have a lot of transparency when it comes to this, because ultimately it is all about customers' trust. After this incident has happened, I have heard so many people having discussions where they're saying they no longer want to fly Boeing. They no longer want to fly Air India. Ultimately, see, it is the trust that is being failed. It is the customer that is no longer feeling safe. Whereas statistically, airline travel is still one of the safest modes of travel. So this
Yep.
trust has to be restored. And that can only happen through vigilance, through a safety first culture, and through transparency when it comes to all of this investigation.
I mean, yes, you're absolutely right about what you summarized and and whatever you pointed out in terms of transparency. My only concern is that um like there is also, due to the amount of data that's available online and the amount of uh you know uh the amount of like excessive data, I mean, if I can put it in that way, which is not contextually like categorized properly to the incident or to the event that has occurred, that causes also a lot of people with half of the analysis to think that you know um maybe air travel is not safe. And I get it, and I'm not saying that they're wrong to assume that, because of the amount of data that they're getting through this world that we live in right now through social media. But at the same time, I still stand behind it. It's the safest mode of transportation even after this. Now, when it comes to specifically Air India or Boeing or FAA or DGCA or anything, that is something, there is a lot of work that needs to be done from now on. So it is critical now that this should be a very big, like, awakening for the safety culture to be adhered again in all the organizations. And I would like to just give my few uh opinions on this topic, since this is kind of too close to me as a systems engineer. Being part of Gulfstream's development of the G500 600 aircraft, I have gone through uh, my my career, where we went from literally drawing board to writing the software and the code for the systems that we worked on, taking them to the lab, testing it, simulating it countless number of times repeatedly, and then taking them to the flight test article, experiment flight test article, going on it, testing it, producing reports to the FAA, showing them the evidence and the validation that our designs are safe to fly. um, Going through all those exercises, and also then going to Collins and working on the black box level, going through the development phase to obsolescence, to keeping it up, to talking to programs to give us money to develop these safety features and implement new changes safely again. Going through all that experiences, this incident, when it happens, and when I see the kind of data that's been presented in the report, it makes me a bit nervous and in understanding how this report was generated, because I think the amount of detail that in the aviation industry we produce to actually even do a small resistor change on a circuit is much more detailed, in terms of how we show the context of that change, where is the change coming from, what happened, what is the result of this change, how will it be actually implemented in different operational facets, like where is actually its location of the change, safety features while you're implementing this change. There's a lot of detail that we write. Yeah, and I know this is not a final report. I get it as an initial report. There is still final report that is, impending after proper investigation. That'll take some time. But even as an initial report, even as a planning document that we do in aviation, to just show what we're trying to change to the FAA or to any other governing agency or the airworthiness agency, we provide a lot more detail in our plans as well. This document being, I would consider this to be an aviation document, because this is something which is talking about really, really critical incident that has happened, and a really, really significant event that should be prevented, that has to be prevented in the future, right? So having said that, the language that has been used, the data that's been presented, the way it's been presented, like Parvesh was saying, CVR transcripts was not completely released. Why? You know, Also the timestamps
Yeah,
were only given per
don't put
context.
it.
Yeah, either put it or don't put it, because then you open up for these social media enthusiasts to give their own opinions, even though they have never worked in the industry, nor they've ever come close to the aircraft. Me, and also, by the way, I have huge respect for pilots, but yes, pilots need to be involved in this investigation. Why were they
Yeah.
avoided is another question. But at the same time, there are some pilots who are talking from a system standpoint, where they have no idea how the systems are developed, but they're trying to give opinions on that, and then make it even worse for the whole investigation and for the whole narrative of why aircrafts are not safe to fly anymore, right? So there is a lot of things that this report has created in terms of speculation that people have taken happily and then ran with it. And I think that's where my problem lies. Like, why would you produce a report which is not clear, which is not concise, which is not precise, which is not data driven only, and not leaving people to get opinionated? Like, the other members of the aviation societies that I think we should consider them as our peers. The way they have spoken about this incident, it's kind of not great. Like, no one person has given a proper understanding of this incident, and that's my opinion, by the way. I'm not saying that is factually true. In my opinion, I don't think so anybody who's come in front of the social media has given a proper understanding of this incident. I think they have speculated heavily, and in some cases they've also misled people. And
Mhm.
hence, I'm being very careful when I say this, and I'm trying to explain where I'm coming from and what my experience is when I say this. this report was not done completely and was not done accurately. Uh, no, I'll take that back. It's not like the accuracy is not the problem, but the content and the data is the problem. It lacks a lot of data, and then it opens up a lot of uh, you know opinionated speculation because of whatever they have left off in the report. So that is my problem. And going back into the actual crux of the incident, um, the fuel cutoff switches just don't cut off randomly. They cannot get cut off randomly. No matter how much vibration you do, no matter what happens, unless and until somebody has actually cut off the switches don't cut off. Or there has to be a malfunction. Either or is the only conditions for this cutoff switch to, you know, go to disengage state. It is impossible. I have played around with it millions of times in the lab setting and also in the actual experimental flight setting. All these flight control switches are the same. These were Honeywell, Gulfstreams were Honeywell too, which I played around with. They all behave the same way. They are standard flight control switches in any aircraft you go in, other than other than commercial jets. Maybe smaller aircrafts might have different fuel control switches, but in terms of commercial airlines, it's the same flight control switches. Is no different in their operations or in how they are utilized, right? So it is out of question that there is some other speculation that needs to be done other than why the fuel control switches were disengaged. And the engine failure, the rat deployment, people even speculated the flaps were not in the right positions. It is ridiculous. It's only one conclusion of where the fuel to the engine did not go through because of the cutoff switches being disengaged. Being engaged. And that is why this incident happened. Now, why did that happen? How did that happen? This initial report did not give us any data. It just gave us half of a timestamp of data, and that is why we are in this situation where everybody's confused. Everybody is, scared. They are questioning the aviation safety societies, and the people who are really trying to drive changes are now in jeopardy because they are trying their best, and now it's demotivating for them to hear this. So I think there are a lot of good people who are working on aviation safety, and the pilots also, particularly, like, they are doing their best. Like, looking at the report itself, they were all normal operations that were adhered to. Normal V speeds were achieved. Everything was under normal circumstances until the fuel control switches were cut off. That cannot be an activity of a pilot who had any other intentions, in my opinion, again. So this is something which is very, very confusing, and putting such transcripts of the CVR to that limited data point, which is one conversation, does not help
Well, it's
anybody.
not
It
even a
did not help.
conversation. It's literally one line.
It is, and it didn't even have a timestamp. At what timestamp was that said is also not part of the report.
It's not even the actual conversation. It's a transcript of the
It's a transcript
transcribed conversation.
Transcribed conversation, right?
Right.
So coming from the world where we write everything to the dot, literally, when I say that, you are producing such a report, it confuses me. It confuses me a lot in understanding what the intent of this report is. And it also confuses me a lot. Was this a checkbox that need to be put in so that this report could be released? And then there's a checkbox that could be achieved according to the international norms. That is what I can take away from this report rather than anything else.
That is what it feels like, essentially.
Yeah.
That they had that deadline for 30 days. They had to push a report, so they've pushed it out. Because one thing that I observed, I spoke to a few friends. I spoke to my elder brother who's also in this industry. The one thing that everyone seems to say is a report, whenever it is published, is meant to clarify things. After this report, there is less of clarity, there is more of confusion, which is a step back. Whenever an investigation happens, the whole point of an investigation is that everyone, all of the stakeholders, are clear on what is happening. The public has some clarity. Okay, yes, this is a preliminary report and bunch of your investigation is still left. Everything, completely agree. The language of the report is, it seems that it is being kept vague on purpose, so that there is absolutely zero clarity. And like you said, it is simply just a checkpoint. that, okay, there was supposed to be a preliminary report. Let's just push out a preliminary report without actually clarifying anything. So I completely agree with what you're saying there. And it feels like, look, in aviation, the truth doesn't come out. It has to be recovered. It has to be pulled out. It has to be pulled out from recovered black boxes. It has to
It
be
has to
pulled
be
out
data
from
driven.
maintenance logs. It has to come out from voice recorders, cockpit data, and radar tapes. So all of this is data, and data drives it, not speculation, not opinions, not stakeholders with some financial objective in mind. So there is only one thing, and that is pursuit of truth and understanding. So the heart of this report has to be transparency, and the entire motive of this has to be transparency, so that the common goal is, again, we do not want to come out and blame someone. We don't want to say
Yeah.
this particular group is the person who's responsible for this. Safety is not about blame game. Safety is not about finding someone to blame and someone to point to. Safety is all about having transparency so that we can understand that this should never happen again. And so for that, there has to be clarity. And this will only work if the entire data is shared, not just some transcribed conversation. You cannot share something, what is your understanding. You have
Exactly.
to share the entire data as is. And with every crash report, every serious incident, all of this data has to be made public in clear writing with some sort of technical accuracy. I also read the report and I found stunningly that the report was not technical. Like, there is some jargon that you're supposed to follow. The jargon was not what I have read from other reports. We've also read reports from other crashes, from other investigations. There seems
From
to
the
be
same
from
agency.
the same agency.
From the same
Exactly.
agency, by the way.
And
So
there is always more clarity, more data, more technical jargon in such reports. So I thought that, with that said, this report had a lower quality in that sense. So again, I can almost sort of speculate that, did they feel that if they had gone more technical, there would be a blame game? Because let's also just subscribe to one notion. Whenever an incident like this happens, with public, there is a grief, and with grief there is an anger, and in that anger we always want to, again, sort
Blame
of
someone.
assign that pain to someone, and we want to quickly get to the bottom line. We want to very quickly come to a conclusion and say, this is the group that is responsible for this grief and this pain. And we have
basically,
seen throughout social
basically,
media.
basically, every grief needs a what do you call
Outlet.
that?
Like an
Huh?
outlet.
Yeah, like an outlet.
Right.
Every grief needs a closure. So the closure
Exactly.
is to blame somebody,
Exactly.
right? So,
Exactly. And as
but
public, we
but
will always feel safe if we've had
yeah,
our closure and we've said, oh, we found that the incident is because of this, so this is the blame. And so, but investigations do not happen that way. What you mentioned about flaps and all of those things, there was so much speculation. There were so many people on social media just saying random nonsense. But I would say the preliminary report was supposed to shut these people up, not
yes,
give rise to
more
more.
fuel to the fire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this report has added a little bit more fuel to that fire. That there are more unsubstantiated claims. There are more unsubstantiated sort of viewpoints, more sort of theoretical scenarios that have popped up. So it is the job of the agencies to now clarify this and get out of this
again,
mess.
I will reiterate this. Like, this is an aviation report that we're talking about, right? I have been writing aviation reports for the last 10 years. This scares me if this is how they're going to release something, because, and that too, like the darkest incident in our history, in our recent history, or at least in our aviation history of India, right? After the 1995 Chakridadri crash that happened, in the mid-air collision that happened between the DHL and
Right.
the Saudi Arabian Airlines, where 400 people died. I think 300 people died. I can't remember the number, but that was, sorry, not 400, 300. It was, I think, less than 200. But anyways, a lot of people died there, and that led to us having today a traffic collision avoidance system with a secondary radar and a mode S, right? So that was a significant incident, and this is a very big significant incident again. So your report has to be a clear indication, factually data driven, and no room for speculation based report. And next thing you know, we see this. I need to talk about one more thing which I missed out on. The pilots, right? They have been constantly put on screen in the media because of that transcript that we read in the report. There have been questions for and against them in both in both contexts. It's not just in one context. In some contexts there are people defending him and them, both of them. In other contexts they are plainly like trying to dig their personal information and see what their history was. That is something which is ridiculous. Again, social media and media will be media, people will be people, but this report created that. Basically this this that few lines created that, and who will be responsible for that is what my
It
question
doesn't
is.
change anything if you don't add those 2 lines.
It did not. Yeah,
Nothing
it would
changes.
not have changed anything. And because of
Yeah.
those few lines, and also adding aviation psychologists and the stakeholders for the investigation, that speculation just added the fuel to the fire for the general public to assume that, oh, there has to be some malign activity that might have happened in the cockpit, or some unintended activity that has happened in the cockpit which led to this incident. And that is kind of like, if it is okay, if they have factual evidence, recordings on the cockpit voice recorder which they cannot reveal so far, maybe for legal reasons or any other reasons, then maybe they could have like given in a different transcribed form. But just giving in that transcript or that transcribed form, I don't know. And tomorrow I might be corrected by the whole transcript coming out, and maybe there's a malign activity that happened in the cockpit, and we are now just talking about the pilot psychology at that point, then, because that also is a serious topic to talk about, to be honest with you. Pilots are getting overworked, underpaid, and on a daily basis they have to navigate through between safety and between the business side of the things. So like, that's a totally different topic, but we don't want to even discuss that in this incident because we don't have the clarity if that is the case over here. And this report has just left us to think about all the things rather than give us like one direction that this is what happened, this is what we need to do to avoid it in the future. Like, at least try to look into these regions of failures, or safety lapses that have happened. So that's my take on it, guys. So yeah.
Yeah. That's our rant.
That's our rant. Yeah.
No, it as an aerospace engineer, when such a tragedy happens, uh, with all of the engineering, all of the data, all of the systems, all of the protocols, it still leaves you with that terrible question of how could this happen? And again, as engineers, we are trained to think in systems. We are trained to calculate margins, factors of safety. We design redundancies. But then something like this happens, and then you just feel the weight of what can
Yeah.
happen. And for me, as someone who's in the R&D side, who's in the manufacturing and designing side, uh, what my takeaway from this is, we are not just building machines, we are building trust. And there are going to be customers, passengers, people who are going to board these aircrafts every day. And it's not just because physics or design, or it's not just aerodynamics. It's because there is a trust somewhere in someone. And that is why there has to be a double checking of everything. And especially now with investigations have to be transparent. And it is a reminder that whether it is a rivet or whether it's a regulation, every checklist, every control system, at the end of it, the lives of passengers are at stake. So when systems fail and when 200 plus people don't make it to their final destination, it is a duty of the entire aviation fraternity to come together, to look, to ask, and to learn. And it's not just so that we have a safer system, it's also to honor every life that is lost, to ensure that their lives lost is not in vain, and that we
Yeah.
actually gain something out of it, and we actually make something which is safer the next day, so that the next time someone is on board, they do not have a question mark in their mind whether they're going to reach their destination. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is a difficult conversation to have, but it is a necessary conversation. So I hope that people take this with the right spirit. And if you work in the aviation or aerospace field, I hope this is a reminder to you that there is a responsibility that all of us have. And if you don't work in the field, even then, we hope that it sort of gives you an insight into how deeply all of us care about this and how deeply we care about keeping all of you safe.
I would like to add something though. Um, People who are not in the aviation industry or in the aerospace industry, there are people who are working tirelessly to make sure safety critical systems are actually safe. It is it would be really, really unfair to them if this investigation is not transparent, because a fuel control switch disengaging in a normal flight operation is no joke. And the people who have designed it would be very, like, confused right now on why that would have happened even after an advisory being given,
Exactly.
right? And that is something which is close to at least people like me. For me, it is a very, very close incident, because I was part of like systems when they were getting developed for both aircraft integration and also for system integration. And I know the amount of effort that it takes. It takes at least 5 to 6 years for a product to get released in aviation. It
Right.
takes 8 to 10 years for an aircraft to be certified. The amount of flight testing we do, the amount of simulation testing we do, the amount of hours. I still remember when we were in our middle of our crucial, critical, system testing. I was working 90-hour weeks. And that is how it is. That is how it is done. Everybody's on board working all three shifts to make sure things are correct. And yes, now even human factors have come in, and maybe we should not be working 90-hour weeks because that doesn't make us productive and safe engineers. So now it's dialed down to 40 hours back because of the right reasons. But I'm just giving you an example that the amount of effort that's been put in, the intensity of work that's done, the clarity of reports that are generated through that work, it is a lot more work and a lot more effort that's been put in by my peers in the industry. And it is unfair to them that report like this come out and doesn't give clarity, and also fumes like adds fuel to the fire that's been already started because of the incident. So it is very painful for me to read this report and understand this is what it is. So I have no conclusions for this report. Like, there is no one direction we can go in to understand this might be the area that the safety lapses might have happened, or slash like the gray area that we need to investigate more or put more order in place, because we are directionless after this report, and that's what the problem is, I think. So yeah, just for the peers who are in the industry, keep doing the good work that you guys are doing. And the people who are nervous about flying, trust me, it's still the safest form of transportation. And yeah, you don't need to trust me because I said it, but it's the countless amount of hours that engineers like me in the industry are putting in day in and day out, and trying to fight the good fight to make sure that the systems are safe, and make it, like, operable, and also make it make it make sense for the operators to continue flying. So yeah.
I mean, just as a point, like hundreds of cars crash every day.
Yeah.
And you hear about like one plane crashing like once in a while.
But that is the industry we are in, because we want to make sure even that one
No,
incident doesn't
that's what I'm
happen.
saying. That's what I'm saying, right? Like, if you're willing to take a car, like,
Yeah.
a flight is just safer
I mean,
statistically.
even after the year that we are having right now, in terms of aviation incidents that we are having, still it is by far more safer than any other modes of transportation. So this doesn't impact our statistical numbers, but it does impact uh, the narrative of air travel, unfortunately, because of reports like this, and also the speculation in the social media, and people who claim to be part of this community, the aviation community, and then speculate incorrectly without having full details. So I would just suggest that people don't do that. I get it. There are some people who are pilots, and they are great pilots. They were great pilots before. I mean, the best example is the Pilots Association of India. I'm actually forgetting his name now. I should have known his name. Uh, he clearly came out in the media and said that Nobody has the right to speculate. Nobody knows what exactly happened. And I would not speculate either. And that is the stand I think every one of us should take, because, whoever is claiming that they know what has happened and there's a Western influence, or there is like something, there's a lobbying going on from Boeing or FAA to, save their name. And again, until you have data and you can't prove it, you cannot speculate, and you should not speculate, because there is some serious stake. Like there is a serious stake in people's lives that is in stake over here. Basically, like there is a serious like debate that is like needs to be like which is happening during this investigation right now, which needs to happen, and we need to give that space and wait for the outcome, and also not create hysteria in general public. So
Guys, let's not end the episode on such a dour note. What is some
Yeah, there was
positive that's
something you
happening
wanted
in
to talk
aviation
about,
and
right?
aerospace? Is someone
yeah,
landing on the moon, or someone going to Mars or something?
so Axiom 4 came back safely. Have you guys seen the videos? The Axiom 4
Yeah.
crew came back. So Subhanshu Sukla is back to, I think, Houston on July 15th, and maybe he's heading back home now, so he should get a hero's welcome, in my opinion.
I'm eagerly awaiting photos and videos. He said he's going to take photos and videos of every action that's happened in space. I'm eagerly awaiting that.
That's true. There are few news like there's a few events that have taken place from the time we last recorded. One of them being NASA and ISRO jointly did the synthetic aperture radar, which is the most expensive
Right.
radar and the most advanced radar that's been sent. It's the NISAR. And the other one is the NASA Crew 11 has yesterday launched from the Space Coast, and they're now going to be docking onto ISS shortly. So,
oh, did you take any video?
No, I did not. It was too cloudy, so we could not see much, unfortunately. But
one
we
of
did
these
go
days,
outside.
you should head out to the Space Coast when a launch is happening. We would like to see the thing happen.
If NASA is not too greedy and reduces their ticket prices from $250,
well, it's like 300.
$250 for viewing. Come on, okay. I get it. It's an amazing event to go for, but $250?
Dude, just stand outside the
You
gate.
cannot just stand outside the gate. There's like swampland. There'll be alligators. They'll be like, okay, alligators are fine. They're humans. Florida of humans. I don't want to be anywhere near them. So no,
that's racist.
That's not racist. That's realist. You don't want to be near anybody who's in Florida and swamps, right? Randomly there. No.
There'll be snakes.
I'm not worried about the wildlife. I'm telling you, I'm okay with the wildlife in Florida, but it's the humans that scare me. But anyways, let's not go into that dark side. But no, there was the so yeah, I could not go to the live event because it's too expensive. Like the day they reduce it or give me some subsidy because I'm I don't know. Maybe I work for
just
them.
Dude. You're a guy.
Maybe this podcast becomes show them being invited to. Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe you guys help me. Maybe you guys help me to make this podcast bigger, and we all can go for the viewing. But okay,
we should schedule better.
Fine. Yeah. Other than that, I think what else happened in aviation world? Like, India is going to launch the most expensive satellite ever in the near future, maybe in the next 2 months or something. And the Gaganyaan program is in full flow.
Well on course.
On course for 2030. So, yeah.
We might have some really good updates coming up by 2026. And thanks to the success of the Axiom 4 mission, it looks like this is a real good boost to the Gaganyaan program. Great news all around. So I'm really looking forward to the updates from the Gaganyaan program.
True. And there's another thing.
I sent you guys a tweet, right? The one with ISRO and another space launch. I don't have
It's probably to do with JAXA, but that was a while back. There's another bit of good news.
Last week.
The F-35 that was in Kerala finally flew out. It's on its way back home.
Yes, finally.
Finally.
We didn't want. Yeah,
I actually
yeah.
felt bittersweet that when I saw it flying out, I was like,
It didn't fly. It
it
didn't
flew
fly.
out.
It got towed out, right?
No, it flew out. It flew out.
Oh, it flew out. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
So
Cool.
I was
So
like,
they finally fixed it. They just took 2 months to fix
they
it. That's
unlocked it
amazing.
and it's airborne. So I was like, take care. We hope we served you well. We were good
Yeah,
hosts.
they didn't want to leave Kerala. They loved Kerala's
I mean, it
weather
makes
and
sense, right?
food
Once
and
you enter
everything.
Kerala, the weather's so nice, it's raining,
Yeah.
and you just like to be right there in the backwaters, take some time off, enjoy a vacation. But
Uh,
eventually, everyone does have to go back to work.
Work from
yeah.
home.
Uh, Unpopular opinion. I think it's also cleaner in Kerala, so maybe the aircraft was feeling good and homely.
Probably.
So
Maybe.
yeah. But anyways, yeah, that's there. And what else? I think we should make this as a regular thing. Like after every single episode, we should like discuss what is good in aviation or
Yeah,
aerospace.
let's end on a
Last week
positive
in
note.
aerospace.
Yeah. Again,
A
yeah.
recurring segment. Last week in aerospace.
No, but that last week in aerospace might be like 10 incidents of near misses. We don't want to do that. But
Last
what's
week
good in
positively in
aerospace?
aerospace.
Not
What's
last
good in
week good in
aerospace?
aerospace.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, I don't know
But we
if
should
there's
talk about
anything
the near
else.
misses too.
Nah, I think we gave enough ranting today for all the topics that we did.
Not today. I'm saying.
Oh,
Weekly.
okay. Yeah, we can. Any other points that we want to discuss? I think I have bashed enough on the social media side of things as well because that was annoying and
There was
spoke
a
about the
turbulence
report.
thing. Maybe we can talk about that next week.
Yeah, turbulence thing needs a little bit more context because it requires a little bit of explanation. So leave it for that.
Yeah, next week. Let's talk about that next week.
Yeah. Other than that, anything else that we're missing, Ashwini, Parvesh, anything?
I'm good.
Yeah, I think that
We're back
covers
after
most
like
of it.
3 weeks hiatus.
Yeah. That was what? Sorry, say again.
That was most of
me?
what we wanted to cover.
All right. So I think that's our episode. Thank you guys for
Yeah.
joining in. Hope you guys
Bye.
enjoyed listening. Please do subscribe to our channel. We were not active in the last 3 weeks, but we will be active again soon. We promise that. And also, we are seeing a lot of viewers visiting the channel, watching the video, but not subscribing. If you could please subscribe, that would be great. Uh, Also, please reach us out to ground control to majornerds@gmail.com with any questions, queries. Maybe you want to debate us on the report itself. If you have to, do comment, do reach out to us on email,
Comments.
and do comment and do share to others who may have opinions about this incident or any other aviation incidents that are happening this year. Please do also reach out to us for any topics that you guys want us to talk about. If you like the way we are dissecting things, please do let us know. If you guys want to, want us to break us some topics. So, yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Until next time.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace.